Karen Geiger. She holds a BA in sociology from the University of Rochester, a master's in education from Indiana University, and a PhD in leadership and change from Antioch University, which is in my hometown. She is president of Karen Geiger and Associates Incorporated, a consulting firm that she founded in 1992, specializing in talent and organizational development. Dr. Geiger has been a faculty member of the MBA and Executive Leadership programs at the McCall School of Business at Queen's University of Charlotte, and Associate Dean of the McCall School, responsible for developing and implementing leadership development in all programs and supporting the Dean in strategic activities. She has taught organizational behavior, human resource management and leadership, created as well as conducted the school's first MBA level leadership development curriculum. Before starting her own business, Dr. Geiger was a senior vice president at Bank of America, where she held positions as director of corporate training and development, director of career planning, and director of work family programs. As a private consultant, she has continued to provide other training professionals with high quality tools, along with guidance on how to use them most effectively, design and conduct leadership experiences, and support diversity, inclusion, and race privilege awareness in leaders. Her client companies include those in financial services, medicine, manufacturing, nonprofit organizations, city, county government, law, and marketing. I actually met Dr. Geiger when she came to speak at this very club probably over 15 years ago. I'm not quite sure. We struck up a conversation, and as a result of that, she invited me to volunteer as a coach for the business programs at Queen's University, which I did for several years and enjoyed very much. It's my pleasure to turn the floor over to Dr. Geiger. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Romy. And I heard wonderful things about Romy as a coach throughout the time people chose her. And we were 5 when we met, right, Romy?
Yeah, right.
That's about right. 4, 5, 6, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to ask you first, before I start, I have a deck that I'm going to talk through, but first I want to ask you, since you're giving your time to this, what would make this a good use of your time? I can't hear from everybody or we'll derail the presentation, but give me a few of you, just speak up and tell me what would make this worth your time.
And so with the topic being working from home, the challenges of working from home, I am curious as to any patterns that you're seeing in challenges that people face across maybe different personalities, and any tips that you recommend. Yeah, to be able to work more effectively from home for such a long period.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm taking notes.
Karen, this is Kevin. Given your background, anything you say is going to be interesting. Right. So go for it, lady.
I need you to talk to my husband. Okay. And anything else that, yeah, go ahead.
Karen, this is Angie. I would say burnout. I mean, I feel like we all did great for the first 6 months, but like when I'm going back to work at 8:30 or 9 o'clock after I put my kids to bed, like I did that for months, and now I'm at the point where I want to pull my hair out. So how do you deal with the burnout of coming back and starting your day, the second half of your day at 8 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
That's been my challenge.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to give you more chances to speak about that. So far, I'll move. So far, what I have, I think will meet your needs. So let me share my screen and forgive my slides, but it helps me focus. Okay. Okay. We just asked that question. What we're dealing with right now, I just put a Venn diagram together. Yes, there's a pandemic, which is new to a lot of us. Some of the same things happened in 1918, by the way. We were talking before the meeting started, with the people who don't want a vaccine, don't want to wear a mask. That happened in 1918, which I thought was interesting. But also what's going on is because of smartphone videos and because a lot of, I'm going to say, white people are home, the visibility of racial inequities is starting to get the attention of a wide range of people. And as you know, my work is with white people mostly, but it's caused white people to pay attention and challenge racial inequity. And we've got a politically divisive, this isn't news to anybody, but we've got a politically divisive environment outside of this. And all that creates a stress level that's pretty high for everybody. And what we have to do is figure out how to survive this and stay mentally sane as well as healthy. So I thought we'll talk about the pandemic mostly, but I also think these other two things are in the way. Jenny, I asked her to do a poll. Before you put the poll up, I'm going to describe, there's an article in the Harvard Business Review from a few months ago that said, in any work group or any group, there are 3 groups of people in a pandemic. And I'm going to ask you in a minute, which one are you? But the first is called the worried well. And this was written by a grief counselor. And he said, the worried well are healthy. They haven't experienced sickness around them, but you still may be grieving the loss of work, of normalcy, of events and being with other people. There's 2 subgroups within the worried well, and one is minimizers who deny the severity of the situation and hope for the best, and maximizers, which is imagine the sky is falling. The second group is the affected, which means you or someone you know has gotten COVID. But has recovered. So it has affected you and you haven't just imagined the trauma, you've experienced it. The third group is bereaved, people who've lost a loved one or are grieving a death because of COVID. So now, Jenny, if you put the poll up, we'll show you the results. I'd like you to choose which one you are. There you go. Just click the one that you are, the worried well, the affected, or the bereaved. And if you need a review, just ask. And Jenny's going to watch the returns. As soon as you have what you think is everybody's responses, just post it. There you go. Okay, so what I'm seeing is 79, the majority are the worried well, but we have a good 1/5 of the group that's bereaved. So tell me, somebody who is bereaved, tell me the story. We can't take enough time, but just tell me what happened. Or tell us.
Make sure you unmute yourself, whoever it is.
I lost my mother during COVID. My mother didn't die directly from COVID, but was hospitalized during the period where we weren't allowed to be with her. And she died shortly after we brought her home. And there were a lot of complications, I think, that occurred while she was in the hospital alone for that week, that had she had an advocate and someone there to help her. I don't know that she would have lived through it, but she would not have had the experience that she had. And it was, that was profound.
It must have been. And so you're walking around with a lot, I imagine, Angie. Is your own helplessness and your grief and your family issues now, right? And you've got kids at home, you said?
I do.
Yeah, that's a lot, as you know. And the only thing I want to say about this is that keep asking these questions of each other, because people who are minimizers under the worried well will not treat this the same way as Angie. It's been a big deal to her. And so we need to navigate this with respect for what other people's experiences have been. And they go from different levels of heavy, and it's a stress on its own. So that's just something I offer you to say, let's just keep talking about that. And Angie, if you know the people in this group, or you're welcome to call me or anybody else, just keep talking about it and process it, because it's a lot to deal with. You can close that now, Jenny. you there? Oh. Okay, well, what I want to say, I'll just give you a little bit of information, but when we're working remotely, what work wants from us is to get the work done, obviously, maintain effective teamwork. And I was interested in what you said, Angie, about ambient noise, ambient sound, is we lose some of that even in the workplace when we go virtual, because we're so focused on who's talking. But we have to maintain teamwork and then keep morale up, which is difficult with those three factors going on. What's critical with remote work is reading cues, which is interesting that we have speech and hearing experts here today, but reading communication cues online is more difficult. Interacting with team members, what I've seen, I do team building virtually now, and people say that if they have a mild issue to talk about with a teammate, they think making a Zoom appointment escalates it in importance, where normally they just walk down the hall, but now they don't choose to make an appointment, so some interaction that's informal and valuable doesn't happen. Then sharing information needs to be done, and communicating key messages. So that's what becomes critical, and I'll come back to this one in a minute. At home, as Angie had said, when working from home, here's what we've got going on. Who's in your house with you? What are their ages? What are the relationships? And what are the quality of the relationships? So do those relationships bring tension, high energy, or peace, or something else? And then how much supervision is required? I know people that have brought their parents into their home to live with them during this time and get them out of the assisted living facilities, but all that plays a role in what's going on around us. The space we're in, and I see there's a variety, if I can guess where you all are. Some of you are in an office, some of you are at home, but is it comfortable because you're there more? Is it efficient? And is it private enough? So when you have conversations, can you have conversations where you're more vulnerable given your space? And then the technology, I found this, is if you need to have good Wi-Fi, and if your children are home using the Wi-Fi for school and your spouse, like mine, has an office in the home too, the Wi-Fi needs to be strong enough to keep Zoom meetings going, or keep the technology going. And the lighting needs to be good for our eyes. And then, do the vehicles we use for collaboration work, and are they enjoyable? I found I had a client who I offered team building to, and they signed up for it early on. I offered it free because I needed to learn how to do it. And they use Microsoft Teams, which is more, what I'm hearing is it's more secure than Zoom, or the IT people think it is. But Teams is not a good resource for training. You can't do some of the things that Zoom can do. WebEx is good, but that's some of the thinking I went through. And then the other things are, I have to move you out of the way. What are distractions going on around you? I mean, when I see your faces, you might get up and walk over to, like I did before, to close my door or take the dog out. But what is going on around you that is losing your attention or not? Tell me what else goes on from the home side when we work. I have 2 question marks there. Help me fill those in.
Telephone calls.
In the middle of a meeting?
Yeah, because I'm not on my, we have a landline here, and invariably I get a phone call, or the phone will ring or something. So it's just more than annoying. Yeah.
Well, and our attention is being competed for by the phone, the text, the email, and real people. So it for me anyway, it takes longer it's more of an effort to focus. Anybody else?
I would vote for cats.
Yes.
I have 3 cats, and they always like Zoom meetings, always.
What do you think it is?
Oh, they like the chords. They like the sound, motion. I'm actually, sitting down in a spot and can't move, so they want to,
Yeah. Well, Patrick Lencioni, when COVID first started, I'm part of a network that uses his materials. So he offered some consultant seminars that we went to on webinar. And he said that what's good about that with your cats or your phone calls or any of that, instead of seeing it as a distraction, it does introduce you more personally to the people on the call. So we're all getting a little more human. And he said that's a good thing. it builds trust. So I don't worry anymore that my dog's going to bark during a call, because that's my dog and I'll introduce you to her if she barks. If it becomes a distraction, I would remove it, but it's kind of nice to meet people's cats and dogs and children who even, I've been on some team calls where the kids come in and look at like this and we just kind of introduce ourselves to them. But that's changed work life too, to be more personal with each other. Anything else?
Yes, I've actually noticed that the way that, or how should I say it? The way we've used our home has changed, and then we see our home differently. So we have kind of what is pretty common, an open concept design in the heart of the home. And as I'm seeing clients in my office and need the kind of sound protection, and Ranjit's taking meetings also for his work and for Rotary within the home, we have had to kind of repurpose the way we use our spaces and make sure that our voices are not interrupting each other. And there's just two of us. So that has been really interesting to look at our home through different eyes, and also realizing that it may not go back to quite the way it was before March. So trying to figure that out.
Yeah, yeah. My husband is a builder, as I mentioned to some of you before, and he does renovations. His business is booming because people are noticing their house doesn't work. And I also, on a personal note, I now have a signal to him that he cannot call. I'm in the attic space. He cannot call up to me and ask if I'm home when he comes in, because I might be on a call like this. So I have a signal where if my door is shut and latched, that means come in at risk of life or death. And if it's cracked open, he can come in. So I have to give him signals because I can't just go, excuse me, a minute, my husband's calling. But yeah, that's true. Whatever's going on around you and how much of it you can manage, and then your physical space really is relevant now. So I'm going to give credit for that. That's a lot. It's not just retail. Go ahead.
I had to take this call all the way from down in Wilmington, North Carolina, so that I wouldn't interrupt Rummy, as you can see, you know. So.
Oh. Yeah.
He's
well,
just,
go ahead.
He's teasing. He's there on business, but.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I was thinking what we could do is also say another thing that gets involved here is how our personalities may change this depending on what we choose. Has anybody taken the DISC profile before? Are you no, if you have, just say yes, so I can't see you all at one time. It doesn't matter if you haven't. I'm gonna do a very quick overview, but let's just imagine the vertical line. Are you more fast-paced and outspoken? Does your energy come out more? Or are you more cautious and reflective and your energy stays in more? That's one choice. The other choice is, are you more questioning, skeptical, task-focused? Or are you more accepting, warm, people-focused? So put yourself in your mind in one of those quadrants. So if you're fast-paced and outspoken and questioning and skeptical, you'd be in the upper left quadrant, and so on. If you're fast-paced and accepting, upper right, and so on. So just think about where you are individually. Hap and Sonia, you can each make different choices, obviously. I hope you do. And then this forms the DISC model. So that's a really quick explanation, but fast-paced, outspoken, and skeptical and questioning is a D style. So if you can do this, up in your screen, you have view options, I hope. And then can you find where it says annotate? I don't know whether this is going to be possible or not.
I think I have that turned off.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, then why don't you do this? Just say me, me, me. If I say, how many of you think you're a D? Just say me so I can count the me's.
Me.
Me.
Okay. How many of you would be I?
Me.
Aye. Aye.
I. Is that 3? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. S's?
I, me.
Okay. And C?
I am.
Good for you for speaking up. So how many people total are there, Jenny?
There's 21 of us.
Oh, well, I don't have a full range. What I do have is there's a fairly even split with only one C. Was there more than one C? Okay, so we're all around the circle. So let's talk about what this might mean when we work at home. This is a lot of words, but if you're a D style, and there's more nuance to this, but you're direct, you're firm, you're strong-willed, forceful, and results-oriented. You need to be careful of going too fast to get to your results, and including people in your thinking before you make decisions. And that's me. I'll put myself out there. So Shannon, you were too, I think. I have to work on slowing down when I'm dealing with a group that's of all different styles, because I like to go fast, but that's just a choice that I can make. The I style is you're outgoing, enthusiastic, optimistic, high-spirited, and lively. And you need to be careful of not taking care of yourself as you meet others' needs. So if you're an I and you're at home, you're going to be really taking care of everybody else in your home before you take care of yourself, and that's a stress in itself. The S's is now the energy is more internal. You're more even-tempered, patient. You can see the words, the energy goes down a little, humble and tactful. And you may spend too much time finding out what's wrong with someone. So you're very good at reading the cues, but you may be really focused on why the person looks the way they do online, and it could distract you, which it may need to be. And you may care more, you need to be careful about caring more, and those are reversed, about morale than efficiency. That those words should be reversed. But the S is the person you talk to find out what the morale is doing in a home or at work. And the C, which we only had one of, was this is the person who's accurate, that you're analytical, reserved, precise, and this is, I'm going to change the words here, and I apologize for that, but you don't have a lot of enthusiasm and optimism. You're more skeptical, and you're focused on accuracy. So I apologize, just put your hand in front of that. But those are things that make us different in our styles. And you can be a combination. You could be a DI, an IS, or an SC, or so on. I did this myself, saying, okay, if you take those four things I said before, interacting with teammates, the D style doesn't want a lot of it, or if they do, they want it relevant. So in a meeting like this, they're like, you need to get to the point, and this needs to be relevant to me, or any meeting. And I likes this kind of thing a lot, including a lot of personal check-ins. When you interact with teammates, and S wants smaller groups, one-on-ones, ask how we're doing. And C doesn't like a lot of interaction unless they have a question or a problem. So each style has a different choice and preference for interaction with teammates. The same thing with information sharing. D, my style, I like summaries and bullets. And I can have it in writing. I think most meetings could be a memo, but I can adapt. And I likes meetings in person, so they'll want more Zoom meetings than the other styles. The S likes meetings too, but one-on-one. When you give feedback to each of these two, the S, when you give feedback, they like it personal, sincere, and applied to them. And a C wants detail. So if you give them detail, I had someone working for me at the bank who told me she needed to take Xanax to work for me. And I said, why is that? She said, because you give me general instructions, like handle this. She said, but I'm a C and I don't know what you mean. Like, what does handling it mean? Does it mean a letter, a call, action? I need more detail. So I had to discipline myself to give her more detail when I gave her instructions. And this, I'm going to assume that all of you can adapt. This isn't putting you in a box you can't get out of. Reading communication cues, for a D, it doesn't matter as much and they don't pay as much attention to it. And I, it's very important what the cues are. So I hear more from I's about online or Zoom training, is they can't get enough energy from other people. And S will look for cues and probably read them accurately. And a C says, you're going to have to tell me if you're bothered. It's not my job to read your face. And I'm being a little extreme, but I'm trying to make a point. Hearing messages, again, D likes bullets. I says, but I have a lot of questions and other ideas. I spoke to a client yesterday who said, I just really need to talk about things. I don't want to just get instructions. I need to have questions back, and I might have a different way of doing it. And S wants to tell them what you want and what it means to them, and or what it means to the organization. And a C, tell me exactly what you want, what you consider an excellent job to be. So with those 4 factors that make work effective, we have personalities that give us differences in them. I'm going to say what may be hard for you. I also made this up after talking to a lot of people. And you asked me to share patterns I see. This is what I've seen, that for the D, and this is where I get into trouble too, I want to get the thing done when I work on it. So I could work into the night and be very happy, but I have a husband who wants to have dinner with me. So I have to discipline myself to stop because it can throw me off and I could work too much. If there's a crisis, I might get wrapped up in it and get excited by it, but I'll forget to take care of myself. And for all of you, when we started this conversation, there's a lot of stress right now in ourselves, and we have to focus on self-care as one of the things we do. We may have to set boundaries about when the day ends and where I work versus where I play. And I'll tell you this, because my house had 2 children in it and doesn't now, this is my work office that I'm in. I have another setup downstairs next to my living room that I used to receive coaching clients in, which I call it my play office. So if I have virtual happy hours, I go there and not here because I can't sit here all day, all night. And we may want to finish every household project we didn't get done before. So D's are just like this at home as well as work. So maybe that I go, which is true, I go downstairs, I see laundry needs to be done. I want to do it, but that takes time away from my day. I's may feel the loneliest because they tend to be highly extroverted. So this is lonely to be in your home without seeing people in person. Working from home environments leave them craving for enthusiastic collaboration. It can be done online, but it isn't the same. There's not the same energy exchange. They may need more video calls than audio. I've heard that from teams I've worked with that the C's tell me they hate video calls and they want to just mute out the video because they want to be able to get up and walk around, or they don't think they look good that day, but I's need the video calls. The I's also miss those hallway conversations that make them feel valued and part of a team, which are harder online. The S's and C's really pay attention to stability. And right now there's not a lot of it anywhere in the world. So stability is disrupted, and many are, whether they've lost somebody or been affected by COVID, they're grieving the loss of their routines, which have been disrupted for all of us. So when we start meetings, it's good to say, like, how are you doing today? And have regular meetings, which give them some stability back. S's may need to give themselves permission to feel upset or stressed. And like I said in the beginning, this is a very stressful time. And like Angie shared, she's got a lot going on in her personal life, and it is okay and welcoming for her to share what upsets her or stresses her, because that's life for her right now. And they miss individual interactions to find out how people are doing, and may need some meeting time to allow them to do that because we've lost the stop by the office time. The C's may find it easy to cave into the temptation of completely isolating themselves. Before they could do that at work, but they could still see people around them. Now when they isolate, I had a client the other day tell me that she realizes now how much she works, because before she would travel and walk down the hall, and that would kind of make her feel like she wasn't always working, but now she's at her desk a lot of the time. And she said, I realize how much I'm working. Extra effort for C's is required just to get a little human interaction. So C's need to be pushed a little, whether they push themselves or by others. And they might not like I said before, video calls, and may prefer audio. So if you just take this general description, I don't mean to pigeonhole, but these are the forms of the DISC tool. You can kind of see that we all have to do this our own way to bring our morale up and get work done. So now I want to open it to you and say, I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a minute. What's been working for you? We can have a discussion. How is your style helping? What's been harder? And just some general questions. How have you handled this given your personality? So, okay, there you are again. So tell me how this has gone for each of you, including your style preferences. I'll let the spirit move you to speak.
I would say as a D, You pretty much nailed me. And Angie will agree and message me that basically was like, you know, my picture next to all of those descriptions. So it's good to see that and be a little more externally aware of that. And I think my big thing is having to give myself permission to take a break, frankly, because I get so wrapped up in the crisis and the momentum and trying to lead an agency that's dealing with so many different things. So, and having kids at home as well and trying to balance that and having to allow myself to just say, I can take an hour off here to do the laundry and organize the pantry, you know, and, and take a break from work. But it has the flip side of there's no end. So I'm just like Angie, 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I'm back on my laptop working because this is my office now.
Right. Well, do you make time to just like do nothing at all? I mean, not that that's a bad thing. I'm saying to have a glass of wine, to look at the moon. I mean, to do something that gives you pleasure that's not work or family.
Shannon Tucker does not take time to sit at all, ever.
Mm-hmm.
I would bet that.
There's some feedback for you, Shannon.
I would say 1% she might do that. That is not in her nature.
Yeah. I would say working, I make myself move. So when it was lovely outside, I would move outside. And that was how I gave myself just a change of environment. And I do have a glass of wine every night. It might be 10 o'clock after I finally finish working and get the kids' homework wrapped up and all that. But yeah, it's
good. Well, that's
a lot of us.
I mean, if it works for you, then it works. But I think we all need to ask ourselves, is it working for us? And Angie's got some feedback for you that I think is a little more than what she said, but how is that working for you? And how's that working for her? So you work together, and that's something to talk about. These style discussions are great to have across styles. My husband is a D also. So we will be very clear with each other about things that other people think look tense, but to us it's not. It's just, here's the deal and here's his deal, and we work it out. But we had to watch with that when we were raising kids. They would think we were fighting, but we're not. We're negotiating.
I have a question.
Yes.
I noticed that, like, if you put one cat, let's say I'm I, but I also see some like cross reference. I'm also I have some characteristics from other categorized whatever characteristics as well. So how do you, can you come up with another one? Because I don't think one person will fit exactly to, ICSD or.
That's right. Well, you're exactly right. And this might not be the frame that works to describe you. On the other hand, I'll say that I only created those 4 to talk about, where if I did a session on this, it'd be much more nuanced. And you might have some of each. Like some people have a strong D and some people have a weaker D, which means that they have a little bit of ISC in them. So you might have a little bit of them. And given all that though, Quanta, how's working at home working for you?
Well, I'm retired. I've been working from home as a volunteer for a long time anyway. So I personally do not feel affected by the pandemic, and I'm just trying to sort of kind of go through, but some family members are experiencing difficulties. So it was helpful to me. Your presentation helped me to see how I can help them.
Okay. Well, it's really the one thing we can all take, or there's other things I hope you take from this, but you can ask people personally. There's no answers for this. And I was going to say this at the beginning too, but we are all figuring all of this out together. There isn't anybody. In the beginning, I looked to of course, because I'm an academic, I looked to the research on virtual teamwork and virtual work, and they're not capturing our environment. So I think if you have an answer or you have a question, that's the relevant answer for the people you're talking to. So it's great for you to help your family, because that can be a way to stay connected with them, Quanta.
I can share that focusing on a routine that fits what's going on now has been helpful, but the other piece is reorganizing news consumption. The old pattern has not worked, news in the evenings and then stressed out at the end of the day. So that has gotten totally reorganized, and I found that really helpful to read kind of bad news early in the day when time to digest it, and then really reserving evenings for more lighter news or lighter activity. So yeah.
Yeah, the Native Americans used to say that the news should be delivered to us by someone who loves us. And we're so far away from that. I was telling my husband yesterday, I feel like the news, whatever is called the news, is the bad news. And it also tells us the worst of humanity. Like here, if we can't find the worst of humanity in North Carolina, here's something that happened in Iowa. I'm like, tell me something good. But yeah, managing our news consumption is a real mental health skill. Yeah. Anybody else?
That's why everybody's coming to Rotary for their news on Friday, because there's only good news here.
Right.
Of things we're doing and how we're helping people. So.
Yeah. Well, this kind of gathering really is a stress healer, because it doesn't feel to me like there's a lot of expectations. You're not performing for each other. You're just welcomed and you're sharing things. And it's a community that doesn't have work requirements, which is good. Because family and work both have expectations, don't they? Well, tell me a time check, Jenny or Romy. When should I mic drop?
Ranjit, what do you think?
I say another 2 minutes and then we go to questions.
Okay, good. Well, let me just go back to my screen and show you that I have a summary screen. Oh, let me get out here. Okay. Some tips I have for meetings online is do what I did in the beginning and ask what will make this a good meeting before starting, because everybody comes to the online meeting having left something they were just doing, and it might change from day to day. So if I just dealt with a screaming child one day, the next day I had a quiet morning, I'm going to have a different expectation of that meeting. And let the styles speak. So people have different styles, welcome each one. And check in with everyone during debates or when views differ. Make time for informal conversations for everybody. Like I said, D's may not think of that, but it's a good idea to do. Encourage everybody to keep their video on because they can read each other better. If you can't get a word in, if the D's and I's are dominating the conversation, use the chat box, which you've been doing today, which is good. And send questions ahead of time that'll be discussed at the meeting. It's really common for the leader to kind of just start and not really meet the needs of the group. And I'll just tell you that if you want to take the assessment for yourself, I offer them and it's on my website. I'm having a holiday sale where they're $57 each. You can take it and see what style you are and all the nuances, and you can see the results immediately. So I'll just, you can call me about that. I won't leave the slide up, but that is an option for you if you really want to know for sure what your style is. Okay, mic drop. Questions and comments?
Excellent. If you would unmute yourself if you have a question.
Karen, I have a question. So it's really interesting that Angie and I were messaging a little bit as you described the different qualities. So I have a leadership team, there's 5 of us, and we cover all 4 categories within our leadership team. Do you feel is that a positive with the team to have different categories represented, or can that lead to particular problems?
Well, my first response would be, what do you think? Is it working?
Yeah, I think it's working, but I'm a D, so I'm.
Of course it's working. I got to move on to something else. Well, you might ask everyone if it's working and see what they say. I would say that the good news about that is that you're not all the same style, so you get along well and you jump off a cliff holding hands, as I like to say. But there's tension in working across the styles that needs to be managed. And for me, when I did training at the bank, I needed to present myself differently than I did today because there are people of different styles in the group. So I need to slow down, talk slower, let them ask questions earlier, and not move so quickly, which I can do. So it's really good to say to everybody, like, do you think this works? Why don't you describe our styles? And does it work across styles? Is there anything we could change?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Karen, Kevin Kendrick here again. I just wanted to say thank you, not really a question, but thank you for the first slide you put up, your Venn diagram reference, the impact that we're seeing on people of color. I really appreciate that. I think that's an area that we just don't talk about enough. It's nice to see some acknowledgement of that and the fact that it's starting to enter into our national dialogue as we talk about critical employees and people who have no choice but to show up for these things. So many thanks for that.
Well, you're welcome. And I do this work because that was my dissertation, my dissertation was about how women manage race, navigate race when they work together for social justice. And I'm getting a lot of calls from organizations wanting to have the conversation and they don't know how. And I would say that's mostly white people who don't know how to have the conversation. White people are taught not to talk about it and just decide it's normal. So they feel really uncomfortable. And so my work is around getting them more comfortable. But thank you, Kevin. I think that is something that we need to talk about.
Karen, I have a question about the future, considering that technology has put a distance between people. I mean, I see that with young people a lot, you know, the ones that are in high school when I mentor, that they are so attached to their, you know, technical gadgets that they are not really having interpersonal conversations with one another. Like if I ask question, there's a long period of silence because they don't have an immediate response. So do you think in the future, the interpersonal communication is going to be more difficult in society because of our technological distancing?
Well, you do, I take it. I think that what we're doing now is learning what in-person interaction accomplishes. I don't think we really knew that before because we took it for granted. The thing I think, this is related to your question, but what I see a danger being is social media, which children and my older children, my young men, sons are really into also. But so what I see on Facebook or Twitter is that you just put out a statement and you don't have a dialogue. You don't hear a different opinion. You don't have shared information. You just put something out there and then people either agree or like or whatever, but that doesn't teach dialogue. And dialogue is the only way to handle complex issues. So what I worry about is how we as a society are going to keep having dialogue. This is a way to do it. I think it can be done virtually, but we need to be sure to use the technology to create that. And there's a book I read a long time ago that said that our technology is going to move faster than our values. And I think that's what you're asking, Quanta, that our technology has moved fast, but we don't know what we want to do with it yet, but we'll figure it out. We just have to notice and do something about it.
Thank you so much, Karen. This has been a really exciting and interesting speech, and I think everyone's really benefited from it. Karen's information is available. We'll be sharing it with the club, and look forward to getting feedback on how you've been able to use some of the things that you've learned today. And now we'll wrap up, but we'll keep the lines open. So if you have additional questions for Karen, I'm sure she'll be happy to stay on for a few minutes. But let's end with the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First,
Is it the truth?
Second,
Is it
fair
Fair
to all concerned?
will it build? Oh, third,
Will it build
better friendships,
friendships?
fourth,
Will it be
Will it be
beneficial?
beneficial to all?
concerned.
and fifth.
Will it be
Will
fun?
it be fun?
Indeed. And have a great Thanksgiving. The formal part of our meeting is adjourned, but if Karen will stay on, and I just seen Barbara joined us. Barbara, welcome. Good to have you on here. Jean and Tim, we didn't acknowledge you at the beginning of the meeting, but good to have you all on here. But thank you, and have a great weekend.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Roy Rucker's still on?
Joy didn't come on, but I will make sure she knows that
Just
you're
that
gonna.
you give her that message.
I will
Thank
take
you.
care of that, yes.
Thank you.
I like to have Karen's email if possible, please.
She put it in the chat.
Oh, she did? Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And David Hare, I let her know that you might be interested in having her speak at your
Yes,
club.
Karen, that was very interesting. Thank you. I have a small club, the Charlotte Top of the Week Club, Rotary Club, that meets 7:30 Monday mornings by Zoom for the last 7 months. It's early.
Man.
You don't. You can wear your night robe if you want.
It's not what I look like. That's the issue. It's anyway.
Would you be interested in speaking to us? There only be about 9 or 10 of us on the call.
Sure. I mean, I'll make an exception.
Thank you very much.
My husband is up at 5 and he works till 3.
We're looking at the 30th of November, if that's possible.
Well, I'll check my calendar.
It's Monday after Thanksgiving.
Okay. Yes, you mentioned that. I said, I'm glad you asked after you heard the talk. Kind of rescinding the question.
I know Dilworth would not have any speaker that's not very good, and you were excellent. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank Romy.
So
yeah, between Romy and Ranjit, we've gotten some great speakers this year.
I'll send you an official meeting and see if you can make it.
Okay. Well, the odds are I can, because I don't book things at 7:30 in the morning.
Well, I will check with our president to make sure he hasn't got anyone else this week.
Okay, good. Okay.
I'll send you something.
Okay.
I've already got your email. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, this is something, I mean, we're all figuring it out together, like I say, so every conversation teaches me something.
You know, Karen, I'm accustomed to, I work with the Myers-Briggs type indicators. So, and after your presentation, I thought, I don't know that I'm a C after all. But I'm so used to thinking about personality in, a different framework. And I was kind of looking at the interface, but I don't know how they interface really. But I have found they do. Okay.
Well, I mean, the Myers-Briggs is more about this, like, what is the package of you? And DISC really helps you relate. It gives you kind of prescriptive ways to relate to the other styles.
I see. Okay.
Very nice information.
Yeah, I have found fascinating the different requirements of different personality types to adapt to this situation. And the lens that you presented was quite interesting. I'm accustomed to a different one, but I see some parallels.
Well, the thing, I mean, I used to say at the McCall School, what is leadership? It's diagnosing and adapting. Use whatever model works, but read the situation and see if what you're doing is working. And those are pretty much the basic questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Which of course each have so many micro skills embedded in them. But yeah.
You would know that, right? It's not an easy practice, but it's an easy answer. Yeah.
It's an easy way to think about it. Yes.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
Karen, I kind of knew this already, but Kevin is a solid C and I am a solid S. And we usually work across the table from each other in our kitchen. So I can see where the tension can sometimes come in between us, because he is definitely more analytical and get the business done, and I'm more emotional. And so thank you for that. I think that helps us to see things differently too.
Well, and you can accept it. I mean, I used to be a D and I mix, and my husband and I have this story that I cooked a 7-course meal early on in our marriage with our children there and everything. And I put the dinner on the table and he sat down and the first thing out of his mouth was, the rice is undercooked. And so I said to him, what would be helpful next time is if you say thank you for doing this, and then tell me next time, maybe at the end of the meal, say next time, cook the rice. But the first thing out of your mouth should not be.
Yes.
So
there are some days I just feel like, can you quit saying that stuff to me?
Right. Well, you have to give someone the opportunity to do that. Like there was a guy at the bank who we had a C district manager, division manager, and he would come to our HR meetings or personnel meetings, and my boss would say, what's wrong with what HR does? And C's will go, thank you for that question. I got about 100 things to tell you, but they'll love the question. And so instead of resisting what they naturally do, allow them to do it. It can't hurt, you know?
Yep.
You can say to Kevin, like, what's wrong with dinner?
Well, thankfully, right now he's cooking dinner.
Oh, good. There you go.
There are some
I've been through
positive
some.
things that come out of this, though. I've done more cooking in the last 7 months than I did in my first 70 odd years. So I've enjoyed experimenting with cooking and sort of cooking for neighbours and taking neighbours to shut in people. It's sort of fun.
Yeah.
It's something I hadn't done before, and it gives you just a little more time to, take your time to do things you've been putting aside for a while.
Yeah.
I'm retired. So.
Well, that's another good question to ask is what are you learning during this pandemic? And we're all surprised, I think. There's some things I've learned about myself that I'm surprised by. So that's a good observation. And learning is always a good thing.
I agree. And my husband and I would travel, I guess pre-pandemic. I would always ask him, okay, what thing from our trip do we want to take and maybe integrate into our life and keep with us? And so we would do that when we were kind of flying home or driving home. And of course, this is not fun, but I agree with you. There is a way to think about, well, in all of this, what will we keep that could be useful or really add to our life when all of the, the grievous part of it is over, which I can't wait.
Right.
So.
Well, I had a Duke Energy group last week where I did a series with them. Oh, look at the dog.
Oh,
She always comes onto the Zoom meetings at some point.
What's her name?
Lady.
Oh,
what a sweetie.
Sweet.
she said, I want some love. I've had lost my train of thought. Oh, but when the group in Duke Energy said that this is a training group, and in pre-COVID, they were traveling all the time. And they said, we saw each other more on this virtual team building than we ever have before. So we want to have virtual meetings when we're done with COVID because we don't see each other. So it is really good to say what's working.
Yeah. Karen, are you seeing more individual clients or is it corporate clients today?
It's both. Right now I have fewer corporate and more nonprofit clients, but I have a couple of corporate that are doing team building. And I have a 5-session series that I offer that's no more than, one group said they wanted an hour and a half over 5 weeks, which is great. Most people just give you an hour. And I have a group of physicians who only gave me a half hour a week, which was hard. And then I have a couple of coaching clients that is just one-on-one.
And why do you think there are more nonprofits now?
Well, I think they are really having to adapt a little more. I mean, funding is a priority that for-profits don't have to worry about. And meeting the needs of clients becomes a challenge, as the speech and hearing folks said. So I don't know. I had nothing for a few months. So my work dropped off a cliff. I had a lot of travel booked for March and April, and it just went away. So I offered one of the groups in Milwaukee a free series online that I was going to do in person because I knew they were struggling. They're an ad agency and they were going to do events at the Olympics. So their work got put off till 2021 and I knew they were in financial straits. So I said, I've already done the research and I've done the prep. Why don't I just offer it to you? And like I said, the other part of my business is I provide tools like DISC or others to consultants. And that business has gone pretty well. So it just depends. I don't have any sense of, I don't have any idea if I'll have an income in January. But that's the way it is right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm learning to have faith.